Do you need to believe in chiropractic in order for it to work? That's one of today's subjects. We're also going to talk about how chiropractors can meet people where they are and have this dance of educating and philosophy, also just showing up for people and caring more about a transformational relationship, not just transactional. Hi, I'm Jenna Quinton, founder of Adjuster Media and host of What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure, Stories of Innate. I put a bunch of links and helpful things in the show notes, so be sure to go look at those. And now enjoy today's episode. Today on What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure, Stories of Innate, I have a special guest, Dr. Neil Cohen. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going? I just love being here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited for this because, one, I want to first ask you, you've had various roles in chiropractic. Who's Dr. Neil Cohen? What roles have you played in chiropractic to kind of set the stage?
So I always like to start off by giving credit to my wife. She's the one that birthed chiropractic in my life and in my family. She's not a chiropractor, my wife Randy, but she was the one that really set the example for all of us. And early on, before we were married, I went to the chiropractor with her, not to get adjusted, but I did get adjusted. I ended up getting adjusted, and it changed my life. So from that point on, I knew what God's plan for my life was with regard to chiropractic. I was going to be a chiropractor. So I went through that whole process, which was amazing. I loved chiropractic school. At least that's what I remember now. I probably didn't love it as much then, but I loved chiropractic school, loved the people I met. I had a relatively small class at Life College, graduated in 1986, came down to South Florida, and eventually started my own practice, very successful family practice. My jam was the philosophy. And of course, the adjustment. I really felt like we have to deliver the goods in chiropractic, but you also have to be able to have the message of chiropractic. I think the message actually is more important than the adjustment itself. Now, not everybody would agree with that, but I believe you have to understand the why behind chiropractic for it to have the value that it really presents itself with. So anytime you can educate people, and that's always a dance because not everybody wants to be educated. You have to learn how to tone it down, maybe lift it up, speak in different terms. You have to learn how to say the same thing 50 or 60 different ways in order to help people understand the profoundness of what it is to live free from vertebral subluxation. So that was a lot of fun. I did that for 28 years and eventually got the calling from Dr. Ed Cordero early in his presidency to come up there and really help him to grow the school. And that was just another facet of my life that was absolutely wonderful. I got to spend nearly 10 years working side by side with Dr. Cordero at Sherman, and God was so good to us. We were blessed, able to grow that school in a way that I'm not sure people believed it could be done, but with God's help and an amazing team, really, we had an amazing team. That's what allowed us to bring Sherman College to really its rightful place, the forefront of what it is today, really. And it's an amazing institution. From Sherman, I went on to become an entrepreneur again. And I started my own coaching company. I wrestled with the idea and I really prayed about it. And what I came up with, and thank God for this, is to begin to help chiropractors not only understand who they are, give them the best opportunity to demonstrate who they are in the profession, but also do it with biblical principles. So we work with chiropractic principles. There's certain immutable principles that we work with in chiropractic. And really in life, there are immutable principles as well. And so what I've developed is 10 mindset strategies for chiropractors to use to help them gain new patients, acquire new patients, retain them, build relationships with their community. And it doesn't mean that you have them over to dinner, but really understanding that, chiropractic is about relationships. It really is. We know that it's about getting checked and adjusted for the rest of your life. We know that. We don't say that early on because that can be a bit scary for people. But what we want to do is we want to give opportunities to build trust as our foundation so they understand that the things that we tell them make sense and they want to have chiropractic. It becomes their decision to have chiropractic for the rest of their life. And we can't be judgmental about that because some people, they have to come in 3, 4, or 5 different times. And I don't mean in a row. I mean maybe over 5 years before they say, doc, this makes sense. And I'm going to stick with it this time. And they may not, they may stick with it and they may not. But what we want to do is we want to help chiropractors understand how to build those authentic relationships with the people that God has given them to take care of. Because we have a tremendous responsibility as chiropractors. We are there not only to locate and analyze their vertebral subluxation, but we need to know how to correct it. And it's not just about moving bones, hearing cracking noises. It's not about being fancy. It's about being specific and really honing your craft for your entire time as a chiropractor. You actually never arrive, although I'll probably get people that disagree and say, oh, I'm the best, but you never really arrive. You can always be better as a chiropractor. And not all techniques work for everybody, so it's okay if people decide to go to another chiropractor. It's not a personal thing, it's a professional thing, and we want the best for people. So coaching has been amazing. I have a great group of people that I coach, and what's really encouraging is that I get feedback of how I've been able to help people, and really in not only in chiropractic but in life, with finances, paying off student loans, understanding how to buy a practice, or understanding how to begin a new practice. So that's what we're doing currently. And concurrently with that, I get to work with you as the membership ambassador, and you are just our social media extraordinaire at the ICA. And that's been relatively new, only been a few months, but it's been amazing. And I'm so grateful to be working with you, working with the ICA, working again with Dr. Cordero and the amazing team that we have. So that's what's going on with me.
Yeah. Well, and I love to let people know that, yes, you are this deep into chiropractic for over 40 years, that as a practitioner, and then deeper into the profession, to have this understanding, even that you have this understanding with students as well. That's really cool. I always ask people to tell a story. How has chiropractic improved someone's life?
Yeah. Well, I think whether they realize it or not, it always improves their life when it's done correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for those empirical results, the ones that people can shout about, in 40 years of practice or 40 years of adjusting people, I've had many. And the stories that tend to come to mind are the ones that are about children or about couples that are trying to get pregnant. I don't know how many times I've heard adjusting people, and obviously they're coming in for different reasons. They don't normally come in and say, hey, we're trying to get pregnant, we've tried everything else, and now we're going to try chiropractic. That's not how it happens. They come in, God drives them in with something, and then all of a sudden they let you know that they're pregnant. And so those are, some great stories. But one in particular is about a child that I took care of. He was obviously challenged with some sort of dysfunction, and his grandparents used to bring him in, but he didn't get adjusted because the grandparents were patients and they got adjusted. And they were wonderful, wonderful people who got great results, who are miracles within themselves. I have stories about them. But they would bring their grandson in, and he didn't speak. He was about 4, maybe 5 years old, and he really didn't speak. And one day I asked him, I said, what's going on? How come he doesn't, speak? And they told me that he was on the spectrum. And, and this was many years ago, and we didn't know as much as we do today. And I said, well, would it be possible, perhaps, if you could ask mom and dad for permission for me to check him? And so the next time they came in, I was able to check him, and I went ahead and I adjusted him. And this was on a Monday. I told them to come back on a Wednesday, and I had never heard this child speak. Well, on Wednesday, he came in and he's like this. He doesn't shut up. I mean, he was talking. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And they're saying, yeah, he talks so much, we can't get him to stop talking now. And it was just this wonderful thing. And I realized at that moment the power of one adjustment and the power of chiropractic when it's delivered for the right reasons. And it wasn't about, my adjustment. It wasn't about me. It was about the trust that these people had to give me an opportunity to just check this child, adjust his atlas, and then watch him flourish. So I just received a picture recently from this family, and of course he's all grown up now. I think he's in high school, 17 or 18 years old, and here it is, he's living this incredible life. And I often wonder, what would have happened if I never asked to get him checked? What would have happened? What would his life look like today? And obviously, God had a different plan for his life, but those are the things that I think chiropractors should focus on. It's not what we're doing for people in the day that we adjust them, but what we're doing for them, what we're preventing from happening in the future, and what we're allowing them to experience because of our adjustment today, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road.
Absolutely. And I think that even when doctors are asking for testimonials or, they have videos set up to film some testimonials, I love asking that question of, what do you think your life would have been like without chiropractic? Or what was the trajectory of this child's life before chiropractic? And asking it in that way, of course, we will never know, but we can see the direction of the highway that we're going down at top speed. So I love that that is your reflection as well. What would have happened? And, we talk about sometimes like the 6 seconds of bravery, just following that nudge to say, hey, could I have permission to check this kiddo out? Because it is so often in whatever we do that we're just seconds away from something important happening.
Right. And I think that intertwines with taking our responsibility very serious. And what are our core values? What are we hoping to achieve when we are interacting with people? And if we're truly hoping to achieve their greatest potential, not making as much money as we can, not being as egotistical as we can because we have great hands, but really can each individual be better? We ask ourselves, I ask myself that question all the time. Can this person be better? And oftentimes I get the answer yes, because I'm looking at them and I'm seeing postural deficiencies that they have, whether their head is tilted, whether their shoulders are up. And you say to yourself, are they being adjusted? Because maybe they are. Or do they need to be adjusted? Because maybe they do. And so when we look at it from the perspective of can someone be better, I think that makes our purpose, our life purpose, our passion different than how many patients can we see in a day. It's a good thing too, and some people have that as a core value. They measure their success by numbers, and that's okay. It's not good or bad to do either, but at the end of the day, if we have a heart to take care of people, I think it's important that we give everyone the offer, the opportunity. It's up to them whether they say yes or no.
Yes. Well, and you've said a couple of things that I want to go back to where you said the chiropractic philosophy, and you've talked about potential and being better and the core reason, which is interesting in modern times where you haven't said anything about relieving anybody's pain. So explain to us a little bit more, because I think sometimes even, and you said it's a dance between the technique and educating and philosophy and all of those things. So why is philosophy important in all of this?
Yeah, I think philosophy is the foundation of everything that we do. And I think that we have to be very mindful of the words that we are speaking to people. And obviously, we have to meet people where they're at. Most people are not coming in saying, I want to be at my highest potential. They don't usually say that. They don't usually say, I have subluxations. I want you to correct them. Those are not the things. Those are the things that we want for them. And so how do we speak to them and give them those things without saying things that interfere with building trust. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that they have symptoms and that that's a measure of some sort of what we are doing and their recovery, but it's not the only thing. And what we have to help them understand is that symptoms, they're always the last thing to come out, the first thing to go away in most cases, and they're really not our main focus. One of the greatest analogies I ever heard, and I like to use this one sometimes, is with first responders. If somebody is in this severe or serious accident, and perhaps, they have broken bones, they're bleeding, the first responder doesn't ask them, how do you feel? They never ask them that. Their goal is to save their life. That's the goal. Well, that's the goal of the chiropractor. The goal of the chiropractor is to save their life. Now, it may not be a situation where they're bleeding to death, where they have broken bones, but their life is slipping away. And when people come into you with a subluxation, one thing we know for sure is that their life has been slipping away. And whether it's a child or it's an adult, the life has been slipping away. So our job is to restore that life by replacing, correcting, removing the subluxation. So we have to be good enough to do that. Now, how do you share that with somebody in the initial engagement of a new patient or even somebody coming in for a while? You can't. It's not really conceivable, because what happens is they don't see that they're losing life. They don't see it. They see that they're having pain. So this is where we meet them where they're at, but we try to help them understand what they could have as a chiropractic believer, as one who understands that, listen, they brush their teeth every day, and that's not because their teeth hurt. Most people don't decide to brush their teeth when they hurt. They brush their teeth as a measure to have good hygiene in their mouth. And people should go to the chiropractor as a measure to ensure that their nervous system is sending clear messages to their body, to their cells, to their organs and their tissues. So it takes time to teach people that. And you have to be willing to do it and understanding where they're at. Whether they're open to it is a really important thing too. You don't want to force feed your philosophy into somebody's life. You want to allow them to understand that this is what you do. And if you start doing a lot of other things just to please them, then they really don't know what you do. So Reggie Gold was our greatest example of that. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things, he had some guts. This guy had guts when it came to educating, and I know it was a different time. But, we get this all the time as chiropractors, and they'll say, when am I going to feel better? That's a question that we get often. And most chiropractors don't really know how to answer that question, because the real answer is you don't know. That's the real answer. 90% of the time they're going to get better, but you don't know. And what Reggie Go used to say, it was beautiful. They would ask him, Doc, so when am I going to feel better? He would say, how the hell do I know? I love that, because it really hits a part of your mind that you go, wait a minute. I thought you would know. You're the doctor. No, we don't know. There's a difference. In chiropractic, we tend to promise the wrong thing. We promise the potential. And about 90% of the time, we'd be correct. If you come in and you get adjusted, Jenna, your life's going to be better. And then you'll realize that pretty soon. 90% of people will realize that. But that's actually not the promise. That's the potential. So what is the promise? The promise is this. The promise is I can get you clear. If you come into my office, I could find the interference, I could remove the interference, and if we could keep it gone for long enough, I know that things are going to be better in your body. So the promise is I can get you clear. What that looks like, you're going to have to let me know. And I always say 3 months. Let me know in 3 months what that looks like. Because you can't have a good baby in 3 months. You can't have a good baby in 5 months. It's hard to have a good baby in 7 or 8 months. You're better off having a good baby in 9 months. Chiropractic's the same thing. Healing is a process. It takes time. And this is the other part of the dance. How do you explain to people that are used to instantaneous answers? And I love this one when people come in, you know, 20 years 20 years ago they went to a chiropractor, and then they come to you because their problem comes back, and they said, well, my chiropractor 20 years ago, all he did was one adjustment, and it was better. Well, you're 20 years older, you've had the problem 20 years, you haven't 20 years more, you haven't been to the chiropractor, and now you're actually saying it's me that's not able to take care of your problem. No, that's not it at all. We're getting you clear, now your body has to heal. So I think it's important to be able to share philosophy in ways that are unique to an individual, but always truthful and always transparent.
I appreciate that. Yes. And there's something that both general public and chiropractors sometimes get hung up on. I think when you've mentioned faith, you've mentioned God different times, and sometimes I think there's so many people, even people who I know, who say, that's great that chiropractic is helping you and your family, Jenna, but I don't believe in it. Or they're a little bit weird. They are always acting like you have to believe in chiropractic. There's always the jokes of quacks and cults and things, but you are clearly a person who has deep faith. So what role does believing in something greater than ourselves play in not just chiropractic, but in healing?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And there have been studies that, believing really helps the healing process. Praying helps the healing process. There's objective scientific studies about that. I think the great news about chiropractic is you don't have to believe it for it to really work. It helps. I mean, I'll say it helps, but one of the greatest days of my life was the time that I adjusted 3 racehorses. And I had never adjusted horses before, and I was a little reticent to do so. I called up my good friend, Dr. J. Comerick, and I said, hey, Dr. J, I've been asked to do this. I know in leadership you tend to say yes, but I don't have any background in this. And he goes, oh, you could do this. And he shared with me, and I still have these notes in my phone from probably 15 or 20 years ago of what he told me to do. And I went and I adjusted these racehorses. And the interesting thing is the owner had called me up the following day after their race, because they were racing on Friday night. I think I adjusted them on Thursday. And she said to me, they all placed in the winning circle, either won, place, or show. And what that showed me is these horses never told me they had a headache. They never told me that their sacroiliac joint was locked. They never told me that, they ran around the track in one direction, so their neck was all messed up. But I was able to find those things, adjust them, and they were better. So I just asked myself, did they believe in chiropractic? And I don't think so. So, belief is great, but you don't have to believe in gravity and it works. You don't have to believe in anything and it actually works, because that's beyond human understanding.
Absolutely. And I think too, like people have said, newborn babies don't have to understand. You can't really have a baby that believes in a placebo kind of effect. Sometime I'm going to have someone very special to me tell her own story of her birth and how she was adjusted as a baby, and that'll be amazing. But when I think about her, she didn't need to believe in anything, and that innate intelligence was working better after she was adjusted.
Amen. Amen to that. Yes, that's a great point, is that children don't have they don't have the construct of belief yet, but chiropractic works. So one of the things, people that say they don't believe, you talked about 2 different things. You talked about people that don't believe in it, and that's certainly, they're right. But what I find is most people that don't believe in it don't know much about it. So I tend to ask them, well, what do you know? Why don't you believe? And it's okay to not believe. You don't want to hold their feet to the fire, but what do you know about? And typically what they tell you, it isn't chiropractic. Typically it's something emotional. Like, I don't think it's right to crack somebody's neck, or I don't think it's right to have a baby, or I've heard a story about this or that. And if you can kind of blow that out of their mind with truth and with what you do as a chiropractor, you can get them at least to listen sometime. But the other thing you mentioned, I think we need to strategize on how we look as a profession to the world. I'm not really convinced we do the best job possible doing that. And part of the reason is we know what we do works. We get very excited about it, and we want to tell everybody everything that they need to believe what we believe. And sometimes that comes off as a little bit strange, as I think that was one of the words you used. And I think chiropractors have to become, much more professional in the way that they share the message. They have to be diplomatic. They have to be strategic. As a profession, we never created a strategic plan that I know of to share chiropractic in a way that makes the community say, hey, I want that. And it's interesting too with social media, and I'm going to give my opinion about this, and there are some that won't like this, but I don't see dentists drilling teeth on social media. You rarely see surgical procedures unless there's a reason to show a particular thing. But yet chiropractors think it's wise to deliver chiropractic adjustments in front of the world. I want to know, how is that really wise? Is it bringing more people in? And then, of course, you see what I consider and again, I'm not going to make any friends saying this, but this whole Y-strap thing where people are, doing what I consider not chiropractic, something that is not specific to people, and how is that bringing people into the profession? It just, there are certain things about what we do that I actually understand why people don't want to believe in it. I get it. And yet, when we dig and we look at why does that happen, it's typically a self-centered thing. It's typically egotistical. It's typically, let me show you how good I am at this, or how loud the pop can be. It sickens my spirit, because I've been in this profession long enough to know that, and maybe I'm just older and I'm not trendy anymore. I don't know. The deal is this: it doesn't feel right to me. What feels right is communicating and letting people know what chiropractic is, why they should believe it, and then determine if it's right for them. That's really the thing. And then do your research and know this. And I would say this. I used to say this to all people that were looking for a chiropractor. Not every chiropractor is created equal. It's really important to understand not every and then going through the whole process with Sherman College for 10 years and really developing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students that were equipped and qualified, and then now coaching chiropractors that have been through other programs. Wow, there's a real gap in what they know and what they bring to the table. So not all chiropractors are created equal. Doesn't mean you can't get good. It doesn't mean you can't work at it. It doesn't mean you can't fill those gaps. But at the end of the day, we have to be very mindful that we are chiropractors, we are professionals, we have this huge responsibility to deliver to the world. Now, let's set a strategy of how we want to deliver that.
I love that. I love what you said about ego, because I think it goes back to what you said about being clear in what the promise is. And it goes back to being willing to say, I don't know how you will heal. I don't know when. I don't know what better looks like in your life. So it is this stripping down to like you said, the foundational philosophy, and getting ourselves out of the way in our messaging, in our social media, in all of those things. And it does come back to knowing and understanding what is chiropractic, and then how do we relay that. I love that you brought up dentists, because boy howdy, I do not know who started their marketing or when exactly it started, but they could have gone in so many different directions. They could have said, oh, the teeth have this many acupuncture points, and this tooth relates to this part of the body, and people would be like, that seems like a stretch. They could have gone in that route. They could have gone in the, really cosmetic route, which we have to a degree, right? And said, oh, it'll make you a beautiful smile. It makes your life better because you have healthy teeth. But also they just went in the simple, direct, regular maintenance, regular hygiene prevents bigger problems down the road. And then they can say things like, my sister worked in a dental office. I worked in a dental office 150 years ago. Where, yes, then they can get more sciencey and say, hey, when you get an infection in your mouth, it goes straight to your bloodstream. This is actually really serious. It's just very stripped down. It's very simple. We understand, small children understand they should brush their teeth. Once you've drilled it into them, they will be like, oh, I didn't brush my teeth, I have to get up. But chiropractic advocates, as chiropractors putting the message out, can we make it also that simple that we can say your brain and your central nervous system are pretty important to life. If you have a problem here, it directly creates bigger problems down the road. Can we continue this very simple, straightforward, philosophical approach so that even small children say, Mommy, I did not get checked. I need to be checked. We see that happening.
Yes. So you bring up some great points. One of the things I want to share too, in addition to what I said, is we never want to remove hope from an individual. And the hope lies in this, that the body is self-healing. And I think that's the first bit of philosophy that chiropractors need to teach everyone that walks in the door. And that's really, it's not even about belief, because that's just proven. That's just science. That's what the science says, that the body can actually heal itself. So if you start from that foundation, you're always going to give hope. And so that really differentiates the difference between when they're going to feel better, because their body is going to heal itself regardless. What it feels like might not be what they want. People come in with damage, and we don't know that there's damage there, and we can't promise that that damage is going to be better because it's damaged. And so, hope is very important. The other thing that you talked about with dentistry is still part of the allopathic model. Now, when I say that, they have certain leverages that they utilize in an allopathic model, and one of them is fear. Fear is a motivator. Fear is a motivator, love is a motivator. I think the difference in the chiropractic paradigm, and even though there are chiropractors, and many of them, that utilize fear of worsening, this type of thing to get people to decide on chiropractic, I think what we have to teach to the mature patient is faith. Faith within their own body's ability to heal, that God gave them a gift, and that gift is the gift of healing, and we work with that gift. The reason why you heal is because of life within the body. No one that has no life can heal. Death does not allow for even poor health, let alone good health. But if you have life within you, no matter how little, you have 100% innate intelligence. And because you have 100% innate intelligence, you have the opportunity to heal. You never have less than 100% until you die, and that would be 0. So there's no 99 and there's no 50-50. It's 100 or nothing. It's the all or nothing principle. And so what chiropractors can do, in addition to teaching each patient that the body is self-healing and that the nervous system is responsible for every aspect within their life, is help them to understand that they can heal if we can find and remove this interference. And that's really the faith that they need, is that we need to be able to find it and remove it and allow their bodies to do what it was going to do. I mean, we look at Harvey Lillard as our first example. I would bet a lot of money that D.D. Palmer didn't adjust him with the idea that his deafness was going to go away or his body was going to be healed. He adjusted him or made that correction in his spine with the idea that he had something that he wanted to introduce, and he didn't know what would happen. But what happened changed the world. And as my good friend Dean Satilli says, thank God that Harvey Lillard didn't have sciatica, because we would just be known, for that. But what's really interesting is the people that don't believe in chiropractic, I'm getting back to that, do they know that the first adjustment helped restore a deaf man's hearing? That's another thing that we fail to tell our patients. We fail to tell those people that are coming into our office about the first, how was chiropractic discovered? It wasn't invented, it was discovered. And it was discovered based on this one day in 1895. So praise God for that. Praise God for the gift of healing. Praise God that we get to work. This peculiar group of people that we call chiropractors gets to work and give God the glory for the healing that occurs in every individual.
Beautifully said. Well, I want to come back to just saying your coaching business. I love the name, Above Down Success. How did you come with that name? Because I feel like it ties into everything we've been saying.
Yeah, as most decisions with me, somehow I get a thought flash about what it should be. And, it's funny, if I go through my phone, I had written down so many different possibilities, and nothing was really resonating until I came up. And it was from God. God put it in my mind, above down success coaching. We hear above down inside out, and there's several offices that I know that are called above down inside. Nothing wrong with that. We have ADIO, we have all these different things. But I really believe that, the same way the name came to me from above down, that's where we get all our principles from, is above down. And that's what gives inside out a chance to express. But it has to be above down first. So that's where that came. And to this day, I have no regrets about that. And it sounds right to me. The other thing that happened in a similar way is I authored a book about a year and a half ago called A Hope Without End. And that came the same way. It was like, how do I title this book? The book is a 33-day devotional that really demonstrates the indivisibility between God and his healing power and what we do as chiropractors. And I use scripture in every one of the 33 days, actually 31 days, to demonstrate that. On day 32, I talk about the sacred trust. And on day 33, I do what I call one another principles. In the Bible, there's many, many one another principles. Love one another, bear the burden of one another, be kindly affectionate to one another. And so I think that these principles of one another really should be part of our practice. It's really about, again, relationships, one another. We're in the people business as chiropractors. We're not in the business business. There's a business side of it, and I think we all need to get good at that, for sure. But we're in the people business. And when you're in the people business, it becomes more than a transaction. It becomes a transformation. And when we think in transformational terms, what we're doing is transformational. We're not thinking about, well, how many adjustments am I doing a day times my cost per adjustment, and how much am I making? That's a different way of thinking. Now, you have to think like that, and you have to have an accountant, and you have to do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're in your office, it's about transforming lives. And what Above Down Success Coaching hopes to do is transform the lives of chiropractors, give them the adjustments that they need in business and in life so they can be the most successful that they can be. And one of the ways we do that is finding out who they are, what they believe and why they believe it. What are their core values? So there's no criticism of any particular way anybody practices. If you're about abundance and you want to make a lot of money and that's your core value, nothing wrong with that. That's your core value. But if perhaps you're about being more spiritual, more family oriented, wanting to be philanthropic, whatever your core value is, that's where we want to hang our hat. Because what I see in chiropractic, and I did this for many years, I saw successful people in chiropractic and I tried to be like them. I think that's a huge error that people make in chiropractic. I could never be Sid Williams. I could never be Steve Judson. I could never be Ed Cordero. I could never be Ryan Dops. I could never be Andy Harding. I can't be those people, okay? But I can be Neil Cohen. What's the best version of Neil Cohen that I could be? I'm just sorry it took me so many years to figure that out. I got to tell you, I tried to be like Jim Sigafus. I tried to be like Sid Williams. I tried to, you could say the words that they say, and it can have a result, but who are you? What do you believe? What's coming out of your resources that people can be attracted to? Because people are attracted to authenticity. There are techniques and manipulations that we can learn to get people to make decisions for sure. But in the end, who are you? And in the end, what account are you going to give for your life and who you were? And how did you glorify the maker? That's really what it comes down to.
I love that. Yes. So one of my core values in our family and in my business I just say simplicity, but in our family we say simple things done well. And to come back to that, when I look around and I'm like, should I have a fancier email newsletter? Or am I cutting corners and doing a shortcut? And it comes down to authenticity, but it's a good reminder too that even chiropractors who come to me and say, okay, we want to reach younger people. And they say, oh, maybe I'm too old to do TikTok and things. Even generationally, what I'm seeing from Gen Z, from the, now they're in college and high school, is they have a really good BS radar. And what they want to see, they do not care if you're technologically advanced or not. What they want to see is your authentic self, not you trying to, speak like Jim Sigafus. They'll be able to tell. And so even in that idea of, do you need to do fancier TikToks or things? Or what if we started, like you said, with that core value, who are you? And then using that with the messaging and that dance of education, like you said. So I'm going to put all of the links for your book, for Above Down, and all of those things in the show notes. So everybody, please go look at those and connect with Dr. Cohen because you will be blessed.
Thank you so much. When you talk about doing simple things well, I see why we resonate so much because I didn't know that was one of my core values till you just said that. But I agree 100%. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just, do it good. Do it good.
Well, and to have it as a phrase for my children to say, we do simple things well. And so then I can come back and be like, bup, 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 bup. So these things are still out. For this simple job to be done well, everything's put away. We don't have a clean house because we're nitpicky. We have a clean house because we want to be able to do simple things well. So we clean up the kitchen, simple thing done well regularly. I think consistency is the other part of doing things well, but yes, it's a beautiful thing. And whether it is, in messaging or even in the adjustment, you're going to have to tell me who said, find it, fix it, leave it alone.
Oh, good question. Good question.
I just did a graphic with that recently and I don't remember. We'll have to look it up. Put in the comments if you know that quote and tell us, because I don't remember it.
It wasn't Barge?
It might have been, was it?
I don't know. I love it though, and I've said it. I've said it so many times. I can't wait to find out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing today and thank you for all that you do.
Oh, I thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast and nothing but blessings for you.
Thank you.